Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session of Devil Event from Showcase. And guess who is there with me? Today we have Chris, a dear friend, and a buddy. We all know Chris Bongers, specifically for one quality of him that he writes daily. And that's something motivates a lot of us to look into his consistency part and how he does it. And we're going to unfold a lot of those things in today's session. So, hey, Chris, without any further delay, why don't you get started with an introduction of yourself so let the people know about you and your journey a bit?
Cool. Yeah. So thanks for having me on these talks. Um, my name is Chris, and I actually work at Daily.dev, which is a really cool browser extension for developers. So that's like my full time job. Some people think the blog is, but the blog is just my side project. I do it every day, mostly in the mornings. So dedicate like an hour every morning to write an article. It's been almost 1,000 days actually now. Yeah, we're reaching 1,000 before the end of the year, so that's very exciting. I have some cool things coming up for that one. Yeah, and that's it. I get a lot of questions how I do it every day and how I get to be so consistent. So I hope I
What's
can.
the number now,
Uh,
Chris?
oh, that's a very good question. Let me see what's it's
Must be close to 900
977.
or crossed.
Yeah,
Oh, awesome.
yeah, yep.
Cool, cool.
So
Yeah, I think one thing that I have observed over last years is like your consistency. You will make sure that you get in start with probably one area of it. Let be it Prisma, Next.js, or some part of JavaScript, and you start unfolding the topic almost every day, and that kind of give lot of insight to the your readers, right? They expect every day there's something will come. Next day something will come. We are going to get an article from Chris. I'm not sure how you live up to that expectations. So please teach us and please talk through. I'm sure that we'll be covering some of those aspects also today.
I hope so. I hope so. And obviously, at the end, we'll have time for questions. So my talk is very much around the hacking your consistency. So if you do have like very specific questions, feel free to drop them. I think in the chat, right? And then we can
Yes,
handle
yes, they
them
can drop
accordingly.
them in chat and I can show it in front of you and you can answer them. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. All right. Yeah, so without further ado, we can get started. So the topic of today, hacking your consistency, it's something that I kind of figured out while doing it because so many people ask me like, okay, like how are you so consistent? And I didn't really realize I was, if that makes sense. Like, of course, yeah, like yeah, I do this thing every day, but it's not hard. So I didn't really think about it until I figured like, okay, I just hacked my consistency to become like the thing it is. So, I thought it was cool to dedicate some time and tell people how I did it. And it's a common practice. So you'll see now. It's not something magic that I do. Right. But before we go into that, so, a little bit about myself. There's a picture with my dog and my wife. So yeah, I'm the web team lead at Daily.dev. I'm kind of loving the digital nomad life, but kind of between quotes because although I'm from the Netherlands, my wife is from South Africa, so we spend a lot of time between the two, and we love to travel. So often we're like a month in a different country. I'm a daily blogger, as you may have seen what the topic is about. I do love hikes and good food. That's like basically everything that keeps me up in the weekends. And yeah, let's get started. So, if we talk about consistency, why should we even care about it, right? That's like my first thing. And it's a specific matter of growth that works, right? So, you might have seen this image if you've read the book from James Clear, a really good book around like improving yourself. And the one thing that really catch my eye in this book, and I only read it like I reread it again recently. I read it, I think, when it came out, but it kind of like then resonated a lot with me because he talks about the power of tiny gains, right? So, um, in this equation, he says, okay, if you become 1% better every day, like over a whole year, that equals a lot of improvement, right? So where if you would go 1% worse every day, obviously has less impact. And why this is so important, so I highlighted here the 1% rule, is a lot of people want to have like the magic formula, right? Like, oh, I want to learn web development, I want to become an engineer, I want to learn Next.js, I want to do this, and they expect it to happen in a week's time, right? And unfortunately, that's not the case. So you can obviously dedicate a lot of time, like let's say a month, to 24/7 dedicate your time to something, but it will have less effect if you ask me, right? For me, it's way more powerful to use this 1% rule. It makes everything manageable. It makes it like clear. You have a vision. You have little tasks to do. That you don't get like burned out by them. And over time, you make a lot of progress. And because you do it this way, it actually sticks better. This is obviously dependent on what kind of person you are, but for me, it sticks way better to do it small piece by piece. You might also have heard of some other terms, like some people call it compound growth, some people call it like a marathon approach. It's not a sprint. Different names, same kind of thing. And yeah, that's really what it comes down to. It's like to break things down into very manageable chunks, and we'll go a little bit more in detail into that in a second. So before we dive into like hacking your consistency, what are some examples of consistency? And I asked this question before in various audiences, and you often hear people say, uh, obviously, oh, writing the blog. Some people doing videos every day, going to the gym every day. You get a lot of various answers there, which is great. But the thing people seem to forget is that consistency has two sides to it. It's the positive and a negative side, and we can see it here, right? So there is a good, a bad, and ugly, I call it. But smoking is a form of consistency. People do it consistently. Like you wake up, have a cigarette, whatever it is, but you're doing that consistently. The same with like eating bad eating habits, right? So that could be a very bad consistency hack. Same with like watching TV, and I'm very much in this one. um, it's something you just do every day after work. To kind of reset my mind, I watch TV, but it's become like a consistent habit, right? So you're either watching a series that you really need to see the end of, or whatever it may be. But the same with walking the dog, right? And that one actually has a very high effect. So if you don't walk the dog, you'll be in trouble because your dog will be unhappy. He will pee in the house. He will become obese maybe. So there's someone else is now involved in you not being consistent. The same actually applies with going to the gym, but now it's yourself, right? So this will have a negative impact if you stop doing it. You'll see you go backwards actually. Um, and yeah, I've written down writing in a diary because that for me is kind of where my blogging comes in. So with that like said, I just wanted this as like some background that there are different consistency levels that you can look at. Let's look at the two pillars of consistency. So, to me, consistency is based on these two very important pillars. So, we have time on the one hand, and we have effort on the other hand. And what makes up to consistency is a combination of these two things. So, doing an action every time period equals consistency. But the same effort has to go into every action. And you can quickly see, right? So if you do an action every and then not have the time period, you're not really being consistent. You do it once. Oh, sorry. You do it once, and that's kind of it. So it might have some effect, right? You might have done something and it has an effect, but not consistently. And the same goes when you stop putting effort into this. Like your consistency will drop because eventually it will demotivate you and you'll just stop doing it. So the gym is a very good example of that. So if you stop putting in the effort, but you still go to the gym, it's not really being consistent anymore because you've broken the chain of rules, and it will result in you stopping going even. So this is kind of like the impact it has on doing that. So in terms of my blog, I obviously said, okay, I'm going to do this every day. So the time period is daily, and the effort is to try and push out the quality articles. If I would just write one sentence every day, it would not have the same effect, and people would not be interested in it, and hence it would like kind of stop the blog. So then we come to, okay, we know the rules. So what is like the objective we need? And for that, we need to set a clear goal. But the clear goal can actually be very broad, right? It doesn't have to be niche down, right? In my example, I actually set a goal that I wanted to run a marathon, but I didn't really have a specific um, goal in mind, as in like, oh, I want to run X amount of kilometers before I started. I just knew, okay, I want to run a marathon. That was kind of the goal. Eventually, we decided to do it in team basis. So we did with 4 people. So you split up the pace. But we had a clear learning goal, right? To achieve that, we had to go training. We had to go training twice a week. We had to improve. We had to be there consistently. So it's really helped to set like smaller goals if you know what your broad goal is. And the goals don't have to be niche down. They can kind of ramp up over time. So a lot of people also ask me what my goal was with the blog, and to this day, honestly, there's not really a goal. I kind of set the blog up as a outlet for me to explore different techniques. That was the whole purpose, right? Because during your job, you not always have the opportunity to try out new frameworks or new things. And the blog was a perfect outlet. It allowed me to do that every day and to keep up with whatever is happening in web development. So, but over time, you kind of find, oh, I want to learn about accessibility, right? So that becomes like a smaller goal that enables the bigger goal of improving overall development skills. So I think that really helps to put you into perspective as to how your goal setting will work. And another side thing that I would like to mention to people is that it's a challenge, right? It's not a chore. If you start seeing consistency as a chore, then it becomes, you know, annoying to do, right? It's like, oh, you have to clean the house. I don't really feel like it. Oh, I have to write an article. I don't really feel like it. Then you'll eventually stop doing it, because like, what's the point? Your mind will tell you like, we can do cooler things. We can play a game. We can do this. It's nicer to do than whatever your initial thing is. So I think by making it challenging to yourself. So this can be, oh, I want to write articles. I want to write 100 articles, right? That could be your challenge. Then you have a specific goal to work towards, and it will help you to mindset to evaluate, transform really your mindset to transform into, okay, we can't lose, because then we won't make the challenge. And it's really for yourself, right? If you want to, you can obviously include other people in this challenge and challenge other people to do it with you, which even has more social impact. So that's always a good one. Yeah. And lastly, you have to be realistic when it comes to being consistent, right? And setting these goals. So if you're going to say, I'm going to do 1,000,000 push-ups every day, then day one starts and you fail, right? So you couldn't do 1,000,000 push-ups. Then that will be literally the end of it. So that's what I meant. But you can set a goal, but it doesn't have to be, very broad. So you can say, oh, I want to improve my fitness level. By that, I'm going to start with doing push-ups every day, and you can obviously grow in that, or you can make it harder, whatever it is. So this is really what I apply to the blogging. Not many people notice I used to have a lifestyle blog before I started this one, and the lifestyle blog had very long form articles. So it took me 2 weeks to write an article. It needed a lot of pictures. It needed a lot of background information, and the articles did very well. But the downside was it was so much work that it was very hard to do. Right, so when I stopped doing that because of that reason, that it was just too much work, I decided to come back to the tech blogging, and I then said, okay, that didn't work. So what will work? So I decided to do very short form articles, and I actually really enjoyed it because it made it like, okay, this is what I would like to read. So it was more relatable to me as a person, and oh, sorry, and yeah, I think that really helps to be, realistic about it. So eventually I could obviously choose to go into long form, but during this journey I really learned that it's not for me, which is fair enough. Some people are really good at it, and I envy those people. um, but for some people it's fine to keep it short. Yeah, and now we have some time actually for some questions and the opportunity for you to become consistent. So I really wanted to dedicate a lot of time uh, on the questions we have, just so we can, iterate a bit on that.
Yeah, great insight, Chris. So we have definitely some questions on the chat, and there are a few questions that we got even before starting this live. So we are going to go through them. I have a quick question before I get started with that. So you told about being realistic at the same time you have a target. You also have a personal life. You also take vacations. You also need to fulfill certain demand at home. Again, you have to write daily. So how do you manage that part?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I there's two sides to it, right? So if we take the work aspect, um, I kind of dedicate an hour every day to the blogging, right? So that's like dedicated time. And how I did this is, before I started the blog, I would watch TV after work, right? And it would be like 2 hours of watching TV. So I said, okay, let's take 1 hour of the TV watching, and I'll dedicate it to blogging. So that's kind of where the time freed up. So I can never be sad about it, right? It's just like, okay, well, 1 hour less of TV watching, and I can do this. Uh, I think actually in the very first beginning, I did this with travel time. Because of coronavirus, we obviously didn't have to go into the office anymore. It saved me an hour of travel time, and I used that hour as like the hour I had to spend on blogging. So that's where that comes in. The second one around, like the personal aspect. So obviously, if you go on holiday, you want to really turn off like from anything computer related, maybe work related, blogging. And I think what helps really well with that is if you prepare for that, right? So you often know these things are coming. So I have a pretty big backlog of items. I think at the moment it's like 2 weeks almost. Um, and that really helps me to say, okay, well, I have 2 weeks I don't have to write. And sometimes I'll still write an article while I'm on holiday if I have some time. But yeah, I think like planning ahead really helps with freeing that time up. Also, if something like urgently happens at work or in your personal life, you have these things in place to use for further days.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to take some questions now. So there's one from Ron. Hope you can also see the question on the screen. Like, what is your streak actually on now for writing?
So it's 977 days at the moment. Yep.
Yeah,
So that's
we discussed about this in the beginning. Like, it's awesome. So, any celebration plan for thousand? Reaching thousand? If you want to spill something,
yeah, I
are you
got
planning anything?
something very exciting coming up for the 1,000 article. You'll see pretty soon what that is.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you questions that Syed asked over Twitter. He has sent to us, and let us take. Do you have the copy of it, Chris? Or I'm just going to kind of read them out. How do you
If you
handle the
can,
pressure of posting? Okay, I'll just
you,
paste it here. Maybe that will be better.
yep.
Yeah, I'll just paste it over here on the public chat. Okay. Okay.
Cool.
So we're just showing them. How do you handle the pressure of posting a blog every day? Is there an automated system that you post the blog every day? If yes, what it is? Do you write the blogs in advance or do you schedule them every day? If yes, how many? So yeah, I think all are related questions that you can answer.
All right, cool. Yeah, let's go into that. So obviously we just talked about the schedule part, right? So yes, I do write in advance, about 2 weeks at the moment, but this is kind of accumulated over time, right? So um, every time you have spare time, right? So in the weekend, like there were some weekends my wife had to work and I didn't really have anything else going on, just decided to write a couple of articles. So over time it became 14, which is quite a lot if you write daily. So I think that helps. So it depends like what your schedule is, right? So I don't recommend to a lot of people to do it daily. I think maybe like setting a weekly goal or bi-weekly is for a lot of people that's enough. Um, but yes, schedule is very important. How do I handle the pressure of posting a blog every day? Yeah, that's actually a very interesting one. And I think what helps me the most is writing in a series format, right? So if I in the beginning, I think I picked a lot of like topics I had in my head, but over time it became difficult, right, to find a new topic, like, oh, what am I going to write about today, and then setting things that I would like to learn as like a series. So I did like accessibility, I did next 13 recently, looked at testing, things like that. So I take like a very broad topic and I kind of make it into little articles that I can do every day. And that really helps me to take off the pressure because I know exactly what I'm going to write. So I think that helps. If you struggle with that, I do have some articles about like finding like an infinite amount of topics with a lot of tips. It's around using whatever you solved at work, what other people might have inspired you, and by using this method of creating series. Um,
Okay.
and then there is also a automated system. So I use Astro for my current blog. It's actually a static site generator. So I write the Markdown files every day, but I use GitHub Actions to automatically publish it at the same time every morning. I use FeedHive to publish to the social media channels, and yeah, I think that's kind of it. It's really not nothing fancy. Actually, it doesn't have a CMS, just plain Markdown files. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. There are a few more follow-up questions that I'm going to put over here. Just a second. If you're able to see that. How do you come
Yep.
up with a topic? I think you answered that already. Short blogs or long blogs? What is better from your perspective?
Yeah. So I'm a very firm believer of picking what works for you. There's not really a good or bad answer there. Like, also it depends on what you want to achieve with it, right? So for me, it's to learn something, and like when I read articles from other people or watch videos, I want short videos, I want short articles that get to the point, right? Just show me how it works. I don't need like the whole background of things unless I'm interested in, and I'll go research it myself. So to me personally, the short form really works well. But obviously, for some people, they love to explore like the nitty gritty backgrounds of how things work. Then long form can be really good. Like obviously, it has a lot of like SEO advantages to write longer articles. So if that's your goal, then obviously will influence it. Or if you want to become like a real expert in a specific field, you often have to do longer form. Like if you specify things like very particular in React, like the more information you can provide, the better it will be. That kind of depends on what you want to achieve with it. For me, it's like to have a very broad spectrum of web development. I find the short form really works well.
Yeah, great. So the next question is about If a topic is big, what do you recommend? Is writing in chunks and post daily, or it should be like a long blog post? You told that whatever is work for an individual, basically. That's the answer that you gave. I have a follow
Yeah.
up question is like, if you kind of encounter a big topic and the topic is pretty interesting and your choice is the short article, what's your process of breaking the big one into the short articles?
It depends. So if it is like one that can be like this happened before. I wrote like an article. I think it was something with my portfolio, right? So it ended up being. I wrote it as one article at first, right? And then I like realized like, oh, this is very long. I couldn't finish it in an hour, and then I decided to split it up. So that was kind of started as one, turned out to be multiple. But in some cases, like the accessibility, I kind of start. Okay, I want to learn about accessibility. I have no idea like what the details are. So did some basic research, and then the first article is actually basic research. Okay, what is this? What are the areas that we can look at? Uh, what do I want to write about? And then write an article about that. And so by that, I know kind of like, okay, well, these are going to be the topics that I need to research more about individually.
Okay, nice, cool. Sari has got a question like, how do you monetize your blog? Do you monetize your blog anyways?
Yeah, I use carbon ads up until like very recently. So recently, my blog was always AdSense approved, but I never really delved into turning it on. Recently, I did. It's more of an experiment to see like how viable it is for some other article I want to actually write. So that's why if you look at the blog now, you'll see AdSense is actually on. But that's how I monetized it. And what also helps, I don't know if it's specific to the blog, but I did do, in these 1,000 articles, I did quite a few guest articles. So you write for other publications. And that obviously also will help you to, monetize your writing skill at least. And they often will let you republish on your blog. So that's what I do.
Cool, cool. Oh, so there is a question from Victoria. It's like she's saying, picking from your slide, is like you mentioned that there's a challenge, not a chore. Is it still challenge for you now? Has it become maybe easier habit and things like that? And she thinks you're a legend, and I completely agree with that.
Victoria is quite a legend to me. With all her projects, I really love it, and the way of writing is that's inspiring to me. Same with you. You both have like a talent of writing very, you know, big and detailed articles, which I can't do. So that's I love to read those. Um, yeah, it is actually still challenging, and that's because I pick things that I really want to explore. Right, so these are often things I want to either for personal projects or work. I like don't have the time to explore, so I really need to dedicate some time to figure out how it works. Like Next 13 is a good example. We're thinking of migrating to Next 13. Obviously, you can use work time for this, but to me, it's really great to explore like all the aspects and then see, okay, how would we use this? What can it do? So that's kind of the challenge for me. It's just like something I really want to do. And I think, even if I didn't have the blog, I would just dedicate the time to make like a little fun project with it anyway. So it's kind of a win-win. It does become easier. I have to say, my writing I think has improved over time. Like the way you can explain things improves. The English obviously improves. It's still not perfect. I doubt it will ever be because it's not my native tongue. But I think it did really improve. And also the way you structure things become a bit more automatic. So I found like a system of writing the headline, writing all the sections out, and then it's just like filling in the blanks. So it becomes way easier. Sometimes I look at my articles and like, how did I write this in an hour? It's like crazy. But it just goes automatic. Really, that definitely becomes easier.
Very cool, very cool. So, coming out of the blogging topic for a moment, so there is a question about the organization that you work with, Nil.dev. You would like to talk about the culture and how is the organization?
Yeah, I think well, it's obviously it's a remote company, so culture-wise, I think it's very important, right? So we try to be very open, respectful of everyone. We want everyone to be very uh, able to share their opinions about the product, about processes. So that's kind of what I try to set, like that everyone feels like they have something to say, right? It's not like me as the team lead making all the decisions, like, oh no, we're not going to do this, here are the coding guidelines, here's what we're going to do. So I really want the team to be active, involved in that. So I think that's the culture I try to bring to the table there.
Cool, cool. There's one more question about the blogging ideas.
Hmm.
You want to take that? Like, where do you get
Yeah,
that
sure,
topic
let's
or
do
the
it.
inspiration? Yeah.
Let's do it. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, because I think it's a lot of people struggle with this, to find topics and inspiration. So here's what I do. So first of all, I use my work as inspiration, right? So often you will solve things at work. We are, developers. We work 24/7 on these things, and you solve a lot of issues. And if you solve something, someone else will have the same issue. So explain it, how you did it, and it can be things that you do by default, like when I do CSS work, I don't even think about it. Like I just do it, right? Here's the design, here's the result. But some people really struggle. How did you get, like, how did you know what to do? So write about that. So work experience is a really good one. You can write about, you know, what's it called? Like kind of lifestyle things. So like way of working, tools you use. That often is very good, but limited. Um, then things you Google is one of my favorite ones. So just go into your Google search history, like you Google something, and then obviously you came to some kind of realization, like I don't know how to use date timestamps in JavaScript. So write about that. If you had to Google it, someone else will Google it, and they might find your blog that explains it. So I think that's a really important one. Another one is read a lot. So I often go to either Showcase, Hashnote, Dev2, Medium, Daily Dev, wherever it is, to get my inspiration. I don't read all the articles, but sometimes I see something. Not to say you can copy it, but you can translate this into your own idea, right? So I
Yeah.
see something. I don't know. The other day I saw something about payment API. It's like, whoa, that's cool. I want to see what it's all about. So I dedicate my own series to it. I saw something about Storybook, caught my interest. No idea like how it works, so dedicate a series to it. Um, and lastly, I think it's some things you want to explore, right? So to me, this is like when I first started exploring Astro, I kind of saw it and I really wanted to learn more about it. So, and then you can go as wide as you want. Like, what do you want to learn about that topic? And go there. So, yeah, I think that those are my main ideas. Obviously, there are more um, technical ways of doing it. So you can do keyword research to find topics to write about. You can get inspiration from other indexes that do a lot on that topic. But to me, these work really well, and by doing that, I never had problems finding topics to write about, just because there's always so much things that I need to research and how they work.
Yeah. Also, another good side effect of that is like you keep exploring things. So your learning on this is like keep going on, right? It's not just about the writing. It's about
Yep.
exploring, creating things and all. So it's yeah, it's a whole package.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
great.
And I think important there is that it's exploring new things, but also like re-looking at some existing things. So I did like a section on React, right? I using React
Mm.
in my day-to-day job, but then I kind of went back to the docs and say, okay, how would I explain this? And I actually learned a lot from that. Like some things like, oh, I didn't actually know this was how it worked, or you could do this with this kind of hook. So there was a lot of learning from that, which was really great. So I think going back to basics is often very important as well. Even if you think you mastered it, it's amazing what you can learn
Mm.
from that.
Absolutely. So there's a question from Favor is, hey Chris, at what point should you start accepting sponsorships?
Cool. Hey, Favor. How are you? Yeah, I think it kind of depends. Like, if people reach out to you, wanting to sponsor something, yeah, sure, go for it. But I'm always very careful with these things. So, if you write articles, especially if they rank number one in Google and get a lot of traffic, people will reach out wanting to, inject their random URL to beauty product X onto your website. Like, I often think it has to be a bit relatable, but it does depend like what your goal is. Like, some people also really need the money, and it's fair enough, right? They dedicated time to write an article. If that brings in money and it doesn't harm the users, like, yeah, go for it. But especially if it's like sponsorships that can be relatable to, development or whatever you're writing about, then I would say go for it. It's a really good sign that you're doing well, like that people are interested in you did something that caught someone's attention.
Yeah, good point. There's a question on SEO. How do you optimize? I think it's a challenge for all the bloggers out there. But
Yeah,
what's your perspective?
I'm definitely not the best at it, simply because it's not my main goal. But with that said, I actually have a lot of well-ranking articles, and what I do is just like basic SEO, right? So technical SEO is super easy. Like, I think anyone can do it. Simply go to like Lighthouse Test or PageSpeed, whatever you use, Ahrefs, and put your site in there. It will tell you things you can optimize. It's just like basic things, like don't use duplicate headers, do this, do that. It will tell you exactly what to do, which is great. So technical optimization, anyone can do, especially developers. But non-technical optimization is the hard part, and I think it's also very vague. There's not like a set answer, right? So Google obviously doesn't want you to know what the answer is, because they will, yeah, lose a lot of money and make a lot of people unhappy. But what worked for me is to have a lot of content around specific topics and link them together. So internal linking seems to do really well for me. Canonical reposting seems to do well. So this means I publish on my blog as the main authority. So, daily dev tips. And then I repost to Hashnode or Dev2 or Medium, whatever you want to repost to. And you set the canonical tag to your own one. Obviously shows you have like authority. Um, what are some other things I did? Yeah, you can do keyword optimization, but this is becoming very hard. So this is where you do a lot of research. You can use Ahrefs again. I think there are some cheaper alternatives as well, where you can put some keywords you want to rank on, and it will give you some ideas on how you can rewrite some of the content to make it appeal better in Google. And this is actually a lot of trial and error. This is actually a lot of trial and error. So you kind of have to go make some adjustments, and it will take a lot of time for Google to re-index your site. And then you can obviously go back. Did it have a good impact or not? So it's never a short-term fix. Like, it took me, for most articles, it takes about 3 months to even get into Google, like at a specific position. So I think it's a lot of trial and error there. But I unfortunately don't have a magic answer there.
Cool. And if you could share the links that you spoke about some of the sites, I can actually post it on the description of this video so the others can look into
Oh,
it.
perfect.
So yeah, that
Cool.
will be perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll do that.
so I think we are almost at the end of our scheduled time, and there's not much questions also, but I would like to ask, like, so you're going to hit 1,000 articles by end of this year. What's next for Chris from 2023?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a secret as well. So
Oh,
I
okay.
won't announce that in the 1,000 article. But I do think I want to explore a different form media as well. So,
Hmm.
like, the writing has been really cool, and I still enjoy it. So, it's flying. And I think I will always like dedicate some time to writing articles. So one thing I want to try out is to do maybe like ebooks kind of thing. That's one of the explorations, but also video live streaming again. Used to do it like, I don't know, maybe a year ago. I did quite a lot of Twitch and actually really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think that's kind of coming back now, but now dedicated to that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it next year. Yeah, surely. So there's a question came in from Ron. What kind of page views do you get now since you have built so much momentum?
I think at the moment, last month it was 200K. So that's about it. Yeah, but that's only on my blog. So whatever I get on Dev2 and Hashnode is excluded, which is also quite a big contribution. My own one gets about 200K at the moment, but you can definitely see it's like going upwards. So very good to see the momentum keep keep
Yeah.
going up.
Yeah. That's the ROI of consistency, right? Once you do every day, keep
Yep.
your things updated, it happens. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
very good.
yeah, 100%. So I think that's like where a lot of people go, no one's reading my articles, but yeah, definitely keep going. It takes a lot of time to, see the thing finally go up. But don't get discouraged that no one is interested.
Great, great. I think it was really, really awesome, and this is very, very inspiring, Chris. Thanks a lot for your time. It was really a privilege to talk to you. I'm going to learn a lot of stuff. I'm sure that everybody listening to this live or will be kind of getting into this video in future will learn a lot of stuff from you. So hey everyone, if you're watching this, please subscribe to Showcase YouTube channel because we'll be coming up with more and more such educational video, part of dev at Elevate program that's going on, and even after that. So thank you, Chris. Take good care of yourself and have a nice day. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.